by doing some service work, you know, you will probably build a community as a natural byproduct because when you serve together with people, that's why, even with organizations like Habitat for Humanity, right? You're going to build a house, let's say in Mexico, you do it together, right? It's not a solo mission usually.
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy, a Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison.
Greetings, compadres. I don't know if you can see, but I have my Golden Girls shirt on. There they are. Big fan up in here. Big fan. I used to watch the Golden Girls when I was a kid, and I think my mom was like, "What are you doing?" Should have maybe been an indication of my weirdness, but hey. So look, I have come up with an idea about how to talk about something that I've been thinking about by using this analogy. And you'll have to just kind of go with me on this a little bit because I won't disclose the specific details of what this is. And you will not only get the idea of what I'm saying, but you will also definitely be able to relate it to your life in some way, shape, or form. And so that's the point, right? That's why I'm going to talk about this. But you will hear my story about this and you'll find a parallel connection to your own life, and we'll build camaraderie and a bridge between me and you that way. That's how we do this thing called sobriety and recovery and life, is we learn how to navigate challenging situations together, right? I hear how you handle your life sober. You hear how I handle my life sober, and we grow, right? So I came up with this analogy basically because it stemmed from the phrase, "not my circus, not my monkeys." And I don't even know who first said that phrase, but it's a thing now. It's been a thing for a while. And so in a traditional circus, right? I know circuses are kind of like passé now because of the way that the animals were kept and all of that. So I'm just using this as an example. I'm not condoning circuses or anything like that. But the idea of a traditional circus holds several key roles, right? That contribute to the overall performance, a circus performance, right? So each of these roles has unique responsibilities and skill sets and tasks. And so when a circus claims to be transparent, okay, and exists under the guise of a certain, let's say, religious banner, or a banner that seems to care for your health and welfare, or at least says that it does, it's a tougher pill to swallow, pun intended, when you see behind the curtain and you see what's really happening and going on. Okay. So I'm going to just quickly go over like 4 disclaimers before I start unpacking this for you. So first, this is simply my interpretation of my experiences. So the identifying characteristics of individuals or institutions that I'm talking about generally have been removed to protect their privacy. And so metaphors and analogies may be used in this discussion, in this episode, to simulate the real life situation that I'm talking about, but any assumptions made or conclusions drawn are simply those of the listener. Okay, simply yours, and should be treated as purely a coincidence. So basically, I'm just saying that I'm going to use an analogy to talk about what I've learned over the past few months regarding a situation. Okay, disclaimer number 2, letting go of outcomes. So keep in mind that when I discuss this circus analogy, that you are a patron in this scenario, right? Like, keep in mind that you've paid for this, okay? So you have purchased tickets. But that being said, you don't have control over the outcome. So, you could have a wonderful time at the circus, and maybe somebody you brought with you, maybe your partner or your spouse, has a horrible time at the circus, right? Everybody will have a different perspective, okay? But also, many times in organizations like churches, like hospitals, like schools, when you volunteer at something, you volunteer because you want to be part of that community building process. Okay. And so when you go behind the curtain, as I mentioned, you see things from a different angle. So every show, every event, every presentation has a behind the scenes element to it, right? Like at some level. And that's totally normal. And, you know, I just want to say that there are really good people out there who this like does not apply to. And there are people out there who may be totally unaware, have a complete lack of self-awareness, that have no idea how their actions can be affecting somebody else or the circus on the whole. Okay, so I'm going to say that. So third, every human under the tent has their own strengths and weaknesses. So certainly I want to be sure that I point out that this is not a blanket generalization for anybody, including the circus workers or the audience members. Okay. We really are lucky as human beings and members of the human race to experience some wonderful leadership in some capacities, and in others, not so much. And I'm going to be talking about the not so much today. So, lastly, number 4, disclaimer, keep in mind that, as I often say, right, I just never, ever have enough information to make a judgment on anybody else's situation, or really to take anybody else's situation at face value. So really, this is, again, an interpretation of my experiences. Okay, so picture this. That being said, imagine with me, if you will, that you decide you're going to go to the circus. And so you get to that circus and you're kind of trying to find your way. You're looking for your seat, and you notice that there are peanut shells all over the floor of this tent. So, you've paid, you walk in, and you realize, oh, okay, so this circus maybe doesn't really represent what it did on its website, or that connection isn't really being felt, the in-person experience versus the online experience, right? And it just kind of looks like it's not ready to present a full and successful show. So maybe in the past, people might not have cared about the peanut shells all over the floor, or maybe they've had a bunch of willing volunteers to come in and sweep up the peanut shells. But you realize kind of like, oh, okay, there's a problem here. And in order to create a better experience for all involved, you kind of know that you're probably going to have to pitch in at this point and help clean up those peanut shells off the floor to prepare for the show. And I will add, by doing some service work, you will probably build a community as a natural byproduct, because when you serve together with people, that's why, even with organizations like Habitat for Humanity, right? You're going to build a house, let's say in Mexico, you do it together, right? It's not a solo mission usually. So in essence, at first glance, you're like, I see the problem and I'm going to get involved and help this crew sweep up these peanut shells, and it'll be a win-win, right? So let me set the stage for you on this, keeping in mind that we never see the full picture, right, of anything, right? There are reasons and there are motives that people do what they do. And all of these leadership roles, even in the circus, as circus workers, are played by humans. So I paid for the circus, and there's no guarantee about what I'm going to get in return. And so whether or not I like the circus or like what's presented is on me. It's buyer beware. Okay. So, however, I do expect some basic human decency and respect, and that what we're paying for results in an experience where one does not feel like they're being treated like a caged animal, right? You do expect a certain level of effort to be put in. And, there are going to be, sorry, I have a door cracked open and it's supposed to start snowing here and I have the fire on. And so you might hear a little, I don't know, windy kind of snow action or something. So I apologize for this. But so back to the circus. So each of these roles that sort of you're going to see is going to require a unique set of skills and a commitment to their craft, really. So the circus is like this collaborative environment where performers, they want to support each other in trying to put off what looks like kind of a seamless experience. So already when you walk in and you see these peanut shells, you get the vibe, I'm not so sure these people really know what they're doing in here, right? And if over time, like this is happening every single time you go to the circus, you kind of just go, that's interesting. Okay. Because it becomes very noticeable that this might be a warning sign that they are not really ready to handle patrons. Right. So it kind of looks like a shit show is what I'm saying. And so I'm going to tell you about the players in this scenario. First, you got the ringmaster, right? So the ringmaster is the guy out front. He's, or she is the master of ceremonies, right? They introduce the acts, they guide the audience's attention, and generally keep the show like running smoothly. So they announce performers, they try to engage with the audience, and they generally like maintain the pace of the show. Hold on, I just got a text from a kiddo. Okay, I might break this up into two just because I want to take my time. So anyway, generally the ringmaster role is fulfilled by somebody who is very charismatic, charming, endearing, and generally somebody who has a great stage presence, but not always. Here's the thing. I have found that this role can and sometimes is faked. So it can be faked and it sometimes is faked. So there are some wonderful ringmasters out there who are genuine and they are authentic. And I've had the experience of being an audience member and a volunteer in organizations where the ringmaster is amazing, right? And they know what they're doing. But other times, and that's what I'm talking about today, is other times I've had the experience where the ringmaster, they like to make it look like they know what they're doing, but they have zero clue. And eventually you realize, okay, hold on. This ringmaster is nothing but a bullshit artist. That's disappointing. So I'm going to loop back to that. We're going to table the ringmaster now. And we're going to talk about the juggling clowns and animal trainers. Okay, so essentially, if the ringmaster is the person out front and in charge, let's say it's the pastor or a hospital administrator or a school administrator, okay, the person out front. So the juggling clowns / animal trainers, right? This is like us. It's the people who have volunteered or paid, or they are patient advocates or church members, right? These are the people who are kind of like the contributors, like in terms of, I'm going to contribute financial means, I'm going to contribute time, I am contributing my patient to this organization because I believe you're going to help them, right? So the role of kind of a juggler or a clown or an animal trainer is that we might not really have the full scope and knowledge of what we're doing per se when it comes to the circus, but we have a pretty good sense of common knowledge and common sense, enough so that we have now entrusted our money to this circus and have a reasonable expectation of what we think we're going to get in return, service-wise, right? So clowns, what do clowns do, right? We provide comic relief with each other and with our patient or our fellow church member or our student or those in charge, right? Like some comic relief, maybe some ideas. If we're juggling, we sometimes entertain or use our skills and talents. But basically, we are developing our skills. We are interacting with others. We're maintaining some concentration and coordination. We're sometimes willing to pitch in or add another thought pattern or perspective when appropriate. And so sometimes we clowns are setting up each other's acts, you know, for either each other or for the circus workers. So sometimes the circus workers can think that we are full of ridiculous ideas and we are better off minding our own business. And they just want us to kind of do as we are told and stay in our own lane. And sometimes some of us need a little learning within that idea, and that is true. That there should not be expectations necessarily connected to patronage. Like I can't come in and drop a bunch of money and expect 100% of things or really anything to go my way. Okay. However, it doesn't stop us from seeing some things that help determine whether or not this particular circus is a good fit for us, right? So, the thing is with clowns, we don't have a super vital role, but we can see patterns, particularly unhealthy patterns, and consult other clowns. And we can talk amongst ourselves about the insanity and the craziness that we are privy to from our vantage point. So we do our best to remain open and positive. Most of us do, both for the circus workers and the community of the circus at large. But it is hard to do that when there are still peanut shells all over the ground that we are constantly tripping and slipping on in our big red clown shoes. Occasionally, we even bring it to the attention of the circus workers, the actual paid employees, right? That there's, a problem. The main floor there has peanut shells all over it. And occasionally there's even a pile of like animal poop on the ground under those peanut shells. And so sometimes something is done about that. But oftentimes, the result of clowns kind of pointing out some issues or problems and being willing to help is oftentimes ignored by circus workers. Not always, oftentimes. And the pile of poop that is there under those peanut shells, all that does is stink up the place, right? So, in closing on the clowns are here to connect to each other, to help each other get that red nose on just right, get it straight. We help each other. If we drop a ball when we're juggling, we scramble to help each other pick up the ball, right? We adjust each other's wig if it's crooked. And when we are frustrated with the circus workers, we talk about that and we give each other advice on that, or we talk and share about our previous experiences with those circus workers. So we kind of operate as an unspoken team and a sounding board. And what is so reassuring about being a clown is in talking to other clowns, we get a healthy reality check, right? So it's like, talk to another clown and you go, oh my gosh, thank God, it's not just me seeing these peanut shells lying all over the floor. And oh my gosh, did you see, is that a pile of poop over there? So without that, it's just really easy to have paid for something and just get angry or embittered, right? But, if you've gone to those circus workers and you have tried to get some assistance, right? And you're not given assistance, or what you're given is kind of a patronizing little kind of pat on the back. And then you go to your fellow clowns and you just go, what do you see here, clown? And then your clown friend goes, oh yeah, I see that pile of crap right there. And there are just peanut shells everywhere. Then you go, phew, I'm so glad I'm not just like making this up in my head, because this is crazy town, right? Okay. So again, these clowns are parishioners or church members. They're volunteers, or, they're patient advocates. They're people who are there contributing. All right. Next, we're going to have the acrobatic aerialists. So these are the guys that are like the sort of trapeze artists, right? And so they have hoops and ropes and silk ties, and they have all kinds of amazing skills, right? They perform incredible feats of balance. They do routines, they choreograph things. They're in generally excellent physical condition. They execute safety during the performances, and they know a lot about their craft and their subject matter. These are people who are suspended in the air. So obviously, safety is a chief concern, right? They're training always, and these types. These are your teachers, nurses, moms, first ladies of the church, or pastors' wives. These are your executive assistants. These are the people who are never paid enough for their talents and for their work. Never paid enough, okay? Next, we have the strong man. And the strong man, this is a great one. The role of the strong man is like, and if you have any evangelical background, you'll know what I'm talking about here. These guys lift the really heavy weights, right? They bend steel. We used to have this performance team in the evangelical church called the strength team, and they would come and, they'd just hack through with a hand like 50 phone books at a time, right? That guy. So this person has real, legitimate, actual strength. And honestly, the strong man is kind of like the heartbeat of the place. He is sort of the heartbeat of the circus because he is real. So, of the circus actual workers, the strong man is the real one with the real skills. So, the strong man demonstrates physical power, of course, but also engages with the audience and the volunteers or the patient advocates and ensures that these safety protocols are actually kind of carried out to the best of his ability. But he's also kind of like the elder of the church, kind of that wise person. He's kind of the Yoda, has a really open spirit. He's very approachable. He's kind of a visionary. So the strong man in my example is not only authentic and genuine, which is first and foremost kind of the key, right? That's like the foundation. But he also knows his strength. He knows what he's good at, and he knows what to kind of stay away from. And he doesn't need to pretend to be something that he's not. Okay, that's the strong man. And then you've got your animals or your performers. These are your patients. These are your students, your kids in the Sunday school program, okay? And their role is to learn behavior or tricks, to gain knowledge, skill sets, habits, and it is expected generally that these people will make progress, right? Or these animals will make progress. Then you have your tightrope walkers. These are more circus workers employed by the school or the church or the hospital or whatever institution you can relate this to in your life. So these people, they perform all of these tricky kind of stunts on a thin wire. So it's really imperative that they maintain balance. They are really high up above everybody, even the top circus workers, like even the ringmaster, right? And they ensure not only their own safety, but they try and cover the safety of the entire circus, right? But from that vantage point, it's really hard to see the peanut shells on the ground, right? Because they're way up here, right? And so it's hard for them sometimes to see the red flags that are those micro red flags. They're more like macro in their perspective, right? They're more like, we got to keep this circus running. And so we got to just keep a bird's eye view on all of this, right? And then you have, and this is where it starts to get a little bit juicy. I'm going to explain this role. And then I think what I'm going to do is cap it there and make a second episode, because these ones are a little bit more involved, but I'm going to leave you with this magician slash illusionist role. And after I explain that, that'll kind of be your cliffhanger as it gets a little bit dicey after that. So these magicians and illusionists, this role is a circus worker who is a performer who specializes in magic, tricks, illusions, right? Sleight of hands, small scale illusions to large scale illusions. Okay. So they develop and perform these magic routines where they engage the audience, where they maybe make the volunteers who are trying to sweep up some of the peanut shells on the ground think that it's not as bad as it really is, right? They're about smoke and mirrors, right? So they also maintain the secrecy of their tricks. So when you have a pastor or a school administrator or a hospital administrator or somebody who's like a cult leader or a guru, kind of more than anything else, it may not always be noticeable until you are that volunteer on the floor. You're the clown kind of sweeping up the peanut shells. Oftentimes, you won't see it until you are shown behind the curtain. It's like, hey, clown, go get that broom. It's behind the curtain, right? And so when you go behind the curtain and then you see, oh boy, this ringmaster, the guy in charge, is actually also a magician / illusionist. Yikes. That's like the big red flag. And that, my friends, is what we will pick up next time. This is about to kind of like pick up speed now that we have these roles in the circus established. Okay? So as always, be kind, rewind. Thank you for the honor of your time. Take what you like and leave the rest behind.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. You can keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.